Before we do that, let's talk about some of the additional steps that are required based on the particular type of installation. So 3 different options for installation: WIM files, VHD through native boot, or VHD within Hyper-V. Okay, and so the steps to actually creating the image are virtually identical regardless of which one of these options is chosen. However, beyond creating the image, we actually, this is where it would vary. So deploying in Hyper-V is going to be similar to the creation and deployment of any virtual machine. Basically, we're going to go into Hyper-V Manager or use Windows PowerShell to create a new virtual machine, but tell it to use the existing VHD that we just connected, or that we just created, excuse me. We'll start up the VM and connect the virtual machine through Hyper-V Manager, and what will show up for us is what's called the Nano Server Recovery Console. We'll log in using the administrator account and password, obtain the IP address for the machine. I'll show you how to do that, and then from that point, we just use remote management. If we're deploying the VHD on a physical computer, that's going to require a couple of things. We have to sign into that computer as the admin, copy the VHD locally, and then mount it. Once we've mounted it, it will assign it a drive letter, and then we need to use the bcd boot command to target the VHD. That basically adds that virtual hard drive into the boot configuration data store so that we can boot directly to it. So then you would unmount the VHD, reboot the computer, and you would be able to boot right into that VHD. Deploying a Nano Server WIM file is going to be as simple really as specifying WIM as the file extension and the target path value of that original command. Once it's created, then you deploy it using Windows PE. So we do have to make sure the WIM file is accessible from Windows PE. We'll boot into WinPE on the local server. We'll use DiskPart to prepare the local hard drive by creating a partition in a file system, and then we will use DISM to apply that image. So that image needs to be accessible, and in other words, it's stored on a file server somewhere. Okay, so we'll apply the image using DISM, and then we can reboot the system. Once again, when we boot it up the first time, we'll be presented with that recovery console where we're essentially just obtaining the IP address, which we'll then use for remote management.